strings, the spark that feels so right. Chatting tight, light up the scene. Coca culture chasing dreams unseen. Find your why, it's in the air. Through the parks and thrills we share. Cruising waves or gaming high. Coca culture shows you why. Whoa,
Good evening, everybody. I'm Zach. Welcome to another episode of Coca Culture. This one's going to be a little different because it has been a while since I have done a Psych Zone video here on the channel. It's been a few months. For those of you that don't know, I am a psychology teacher. I cannot say by any means that I'm a psychology expert, and I won't even attempt to, but psychology and mental health as a whole are a huge part of my life and of vital importance. And so I enjoy doing these deep dives on psychology topics, especially ones that many people go through and are fairly common. And so that's what I wanted to take a look at tonight, is another fairly common one. In fact, one that I had a few people over the course of the weekend reach out to me about in particular. So I felt kind of called to do this video. So I'm gonna start by asking you something that might make you feel a little uncomfortable. Have you ever been driving down the highway and suddenly thought, what if I just swerved into the other lane right now? Or standing on a crowded subway platform and thought, what if I just jumped on the tracks? Or you've been cutting up vegetables in the kitchen and just had a flash of, what if I just kept going? And then immediately your brain, like flashbulbs, shouts, whoa, what? Why am I thinking that? What is this? If you've had any moment like this, you might have thought you were the only one. Why do I think this way? Why is this the case? Okay, but you're not. In fact, research has shown 90% of people experience intrusive thoughts at some point in their lives. The other 10%, honestly, just might not be paying much attention. An intrusive thought is an unwanted, involuntary thought, image, or impulse that pops into your head, often at the worst possible time. They can be violent, sexual, absurd, or just completely out of line with who you are. Here's the critical thing to remember when it comes to intrusive thoughts. Having a thought is not the same as acting on it. Thoughts are mental events. They're not a verdict on your morals. They don't say anything about you're conscious. But because these thoughts can be disturbing, many people panic and immediately have kind of a crisis of conscience. Does this mean something about me? Am I dangerous? Am I broken? Let me tell you about the first intrusive thought that I ever remember having. I was about 11, 12 years old, standing in church with my family. It was one of those quiet prayer moments during the service. Everyone's head are bowed, everyone's eyes are closed, and my brain just says, shout something right now. I froze. And my heart started pounding. I probably started sweating a little bit. And I remember the next thought being, why would I even think that? You know, I'm a good kid. You know, am I secretly evil? Is there something wrong with me? Have I not figured out, you know, who I actually am? And for those wondering, no, I didn't shout, you know, but the rest of the day, I just kept running that through my mind over and over and over. Of course, I've had many more since then, but since this was the first one, it stuck with me. You know, and that's what these intrusive thoughts have the ability to do if we let them. It's like dropping a pebble into a pond. In this case, of course, the pond is your mind. And if you let it, those ripples can then take over your entire mental state for a long time if you allow it. So here's where science and the research actually comes in to help us stop blaming ourselves with these. Okay, our brains are prediction machines. They're constantly scanning for threats, running simulations, typically worst case scenarios, asking the major what if questions. And this is fantastic when you're trying to cross a busy street and your brain is like, what if that car doesn't stop? You know, things like that helps keep us safe in the day-to-day world. But sometimes, like Russell Westbrook, the system overshoots. Your brain produces a thought that is completely irrelevant, unhelpful, or even the opposite of your morals and values. Psychologists have a term for this. It's called thought-action fusion. When you believe that just thinking something is morally equivalent to acting on it, to doing that thing, or that just having the thought makes it more likely to happen. The truth or reality of the situation, an intrusive thought is more like you receiving a spam email. It pops up uninvited, most of the time absurd, and you're not responsible for it being sent to your inbox. It just happens. Now, here's where things can get tricky when it comes to these intrusive thoughts. If you shrug it off, it might pass in seconds without any other thought about it. But if you attach meaning to it, which is the process of how we make memories to begin with, we give it meaning. For example, I must be a bad person for thinking this. That's meaning for the thought. That's when the spiral can begin, and the downward spiral of letting the thought sink. For people with certain anxiety disorders, because intrusive thoughts are extremely common in helping to cause these types of disorders, depression, OCD, these thoughts can become relentless. They can feel overpowering to the point that you might start avoiding certain situations as a result of these thoughts. A new mom might avoid being alone with her baby because of terrifying images of harm that could be related to postpartum. A student avoiding the kitchen as a result of thoughts about knives and other violent mental images of things that could happen within a kitchen. A driver avoiding highways as a result of going back to that previous example of the sudden urge to swerve into another lane or having that thought. Again, the thought itself is not dangerous, but the avoidance, the shame, and the fear can start tearing apart your overall quality of life on a day-to-day basis. One of the biggest problems with these intrusive thoughts is people don't talk about them. And the main reason people don't is because we're all afraid of judgment. That's another super common thing. We don't want to be judged. We don't want people to think certain ways about us. But the more that you hide them, the more power that they gain over you. Speaking with people that have worked within the mental health field and oversee mental health groups, they've said that they will typically start a session with their group, especially if it's the first time, by asking, has anyone ever had a random thought that scared you? And they say that 90% of the time, almost every hand in the room goes up. And the relief in the room after that is palpable. Just knowing that you're not alone can be a life-changing fact. It does wonders. So what do you do when your mind serves you one of these little spam emails, one of these mental curveballs thrown your way? First, name it for what it is. Okay? Don't label yourself and start thinking about yourself. Label the thought. Okay? Register it. This is an intrusive thought. Okay? My brain is sending me junk mail again. Second thing to do, don't fight it. Think of your thoughts like clouds passing overhead in the sky. You don't have to grab onto a cloud and wrestle with it. Just let it drift on. And if you let it drift on, it's gone. Use techniques like mindfulness and grounding. Try to focus on something in the present around you. Your other sensations. Make your brain focus on those. Okay? Think about how the ground feels beneath your feet. Or if you're wearing shoes, think about how your feet feel in the socks or how your feet feel within the shoes themselves. Okay? Or take advantage of your sight and try to name 5 things that you see within your field of vision. Or, even just concentrate on your breathing and take a couple of very deep, slow, relaxing breaths and kind of get into a mindset of focusing on these other things and not let those intrusive thoughts distract you. Number 4, challenge that thought action fusion that I mentioned earlier. Remind yourself that thinking something is not the same thing as wanting that thing to happen. And it does not make it more likely to happen just because you thought it, just because and you may not have put it out there, but just the fact your brain put it out there doesn't mean it's going to happen. And then 5th thing, if those others don't work, seek professional support. If this continues to be an issue and leads to bigger problems for yourself in your day-to-day life, you may need to seek professional help. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure and response prevention are super effective in dealing with this. Okay, and you don't have to do this alone. That's a very common statement here on the Coker Culture channel. We don't do life alone. We weren't made to do life alone. To give you another story, again, just trying to relate this. Once I was on a Zoom call and my brain whispered, just one of these thoughts just came to me. What if you just mimicked that Super Trooper scene and started to see how many times you could say the word meow during the call? That's it. No reason. Just meow. Now, again, I didn't meow. Sorry to disappoint y'all. Great movie. I laughed my head off in that movie. It's a funny scene to recount. This was not a Zoom call where I should have even attempted this. Okay? I didn't meow. I did laugh out loud mid-meeting because I realized This was just my brain doing its thing, and my brain sending crazy message. You know, it's almost like when you've got a toddler running through the house, banging pots and pans, trying to get attention. You know, that's what my brain was doing. And sometimes humor, or just recognizing and laughing at the fact that this has popped in your head, is the quickest way to rob those thoughts of their power or their hold over you. You know, laughing them off. So again, as I get ready to close here, these intrusive thoughts will happen. You can't stop them entirely, okay, any more than you can stop the wind from blowing. But you can stop giving them the power to define who you are, or to have any additional take over your day-to-day life. So remember these 3 key things. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. And the one who notices them is the one in control. So ultimately, you are the one with all the power, not your thoughts. So the next time an uninvited guest pops into your mental living room, smile, nod, and show them the door, because you have better things to think about. Thank you guys. I hope this helped. For those of you that may be dealing with this or have had issues with this, I hope this brings some light, maybe some humor to the situation. I appreciate you all for watching and tuning in to us. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, as it feeds the YouTube algorithm and hopefully will make its way to even more folks that may need to hear this message. Until next time, what's your why?